So on the channel, I try to diversify the tools that I give out as much as possible while still remaining in the confines on what can I teach on YouTube. And I realized that I haven't really gone over glimpses just yet. So we'll start with what's most likely one of the first glimpses that have ever been created. Now, as you can probably guess from the name, this move actually comes from card cheats. Now, the idea of buckling a card in a certain way actually dates back way back. So it is actually from an unpublished book cataloged as MSS3 18 back. It's sort of a range of dates. No one really knows when it's been published, but it's sort of around 1670 to 1730. So it is a very old move by an anonymous author. This book can be found in the Biblioteca di Asti in Italy. So it's a very specific book in a very specific age. So it is very old. Now, the idea of using the buckle as a glimpse has probably been introduced into the world of card cheating and magic fairly early on as well, I imagine. So the indices of playing cards, so the numbers and the pips, these weren't always there before. These were just blank corners. So these indices were actually introduced to playing cards around the 1860s. And considering how old the buckle is, I wouldn't be surprised if card cheats had actually connected the two dots very fast. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were like, oh, if I buckle this card over here, I can actually peek this bottom index over here. So I wouldn't be surprised if this existed fairly early on without any proper documentation, of course. But in magic books, where there is official documentation, this move is published in a lot of places. So the first magic book, to my knowledge, that actually published this idea was Forelli's Card Magic Part 2 by Victor Forelli back in 1933. There was also published in Card Manipulations issue 5 back in 1936 by G. Newgard. And then obviously it's been published in Greater Magic back in 1938 by John Norton Hilliard. That's actually where I got the name from. So I'll mainly be drawing my description of this move from that book, from Greater Magic. So this move is meant to be done under the context of squaring the deck up. This book, the book Greater Magic, obviously says that this should be done after a shuffle, but anything that leaves you with a messy deck, like a dribble or a spread, will work as well. So after you messed up your deck and now you have this messy pile of cards, your right hand is just going to come over and it's just going to grip the deck in a right hand billow grip, while your left hand is just on the bottom supporting the deck, just like so, okay? Your right thumb should be on the center of the short edge, of the bottom short edge over here, okay? Your left hand, on the other hand, no pun intended, is just going to relax, okay? So when you relax your hand, it's just going to slightly dip down, right? The wrist is going to dip down and your palm is just going to open up towards you, okay? So what this actually does is that this causes the left index to actually just roll and line up with the front short edge of the deck, like so. So it goes from here and relax and just rolls into this position, okay? Like that, okay? Boop, like so, okay? Now, what happens is that your left index is going to apply the slightest bit of pressure. Friction is just going to do the work, okay? So it's just going to do this and it's just going to contact the bottom card along the front short edge like so, and just apply the slightest bit of pressure, okay? Now you're going to do two things. Now your right hand that's carrying the deck is just going to move forwards, while your left hand is going to move backwards. So this combination of movement will actually cause the bottom card to actually just catch against the index finger, and it's just going to bend against the right thumb over here, and it's just going to buckle this card, okay? So this buckle actually does two things. So one, exposes the face of the card towards you, okay? So if I buckle this card, now I can clearly see the index of this card, so I can see that it is the Queen of Clubs. It also does a second thing, and that is the lateral crimp. So this crimps this card over here. So now I have a U shape in this card. So when I release my index, this creates a crimp. But it is important to note that the crimp is an unintended side effect of this glimpse. But if it's there, why not just use it? But if you are struggling to peek the index of this card, what you can do is that you can slightly tilt the front of the deck downwards, causing the back to be exposed a bit more. So now you can glimpse the card a lot easier, okay? Just like so, all right? So to clean up this move, you're basically just gonna do this move in reverse. Your right hand is just gonna move backwards, and your left hand is just gonna move forwards, and this causes this card to unbuckle while still crimping this card, okay? And then from there, you just fully square up the deck, okay? So this whole motion should be messy deck, right hand grabs on top, relax left hand, and then left index lines up with the front short edge of the deck, contacting this bottom card. Your left thumb is just going to remain in contact with the left long edge of the deck, and this forward and backwards motion is going to be the squaring action, okay? So this forward action is just going to square up the deck, but at the same time you're buckling the bottom card, so then you can glimpse the card, but you're also squaring up the deck, okay? So it's just going to be a squaring motion, and then that's that. Okay, so that's the general context behind the move. So the entry on the move in Greater Magic also included a very basic control to do after the glimpse. But personally, I find it to be a very bizarre addition, because for this control, you cut the deck and then you undo the cut for the control, which is very bizarre because you just squared up a messy deck. Why would you make the deck messy again? And also, in the book, John Norton Hilliard actually tells you that after the glimpse, you would then table the deck, and then you would do one cut, right? And then you would do another cut, which I find it to be very bizarre, because if the deck is already in your hand, why not do one cut from your hand and then do a table cut, right? There's no reason why you should table the deck and then just do a cut and then do another cut from the table, because that's just a very, very bizarre sequence of events, right? It's a repeating motion, which I don't personally enjoy. I think that if you do it from the hands and then you do a table cut, I think there's more variety in that, and I think it sort of makes it less jank, because there's variation, right? There's variation in this one particular motion, okay? So I find that to be very jank, but regardless of these two nitpicks, you can also just do this without the glimpse. So I don't know why he would toss this part into the glimpse, but it's there. So it's very, very bizarre, okay? But it is included in the section for the glimpse, so I'm going to teach it regardless, okay? So after doing the glimpse, or just in general, you have the deck in a left-hand dealer's grip. Your right hand is going to take half the deck and cut it onto the table, okay? You're then going to take the other half, but instead of just laying it on top of the tabled half, you're going to gently toss it on top of the tabled half with a gentle forward motion. So what this causes it to do is that you're just going to smear these cards on top of the deck, okay? So the area that you're looking for, like the toss, is probably in the upper half of the deck. So I don't want to toss it like behind over here. I want to toss sort of this deck sort of here, okay? So I want this, okay? So this actually causes the bottom few cards to actually bevel. So now you can distinctly make out the bottom cards as well as the few cards above it. So this means that now when you go to execute that second cut, your right thumb can just press down on whichever card that you want and control where it wants to pick up. So after your right thumb contacts whatever card that you want and whatever position that you want the bottom card to be at, you're just going to extend your right hand, and your right fingers are just going to contact the top card over here, and it's just going to square up. So it's just going to pull these cards towards your left thumb until these cards are up against the right thumb over here. Then I'm actually just going to continue scooping back until I can just sort of drag this card on top of this deck over here. And then I can just cut this packet forward, and I can just cut this packet on top, and I could place the selection on top of the deck. So what's basically happening is that I'm basically just adding on the cards that are pressed down on my thumb. So if I want 2 cards, press down these 2 cards, scoop everything above, press it against my thumb, scoop it backwards, so then these 2 cards go on top of this packet, cut forward, and then cut forward as well, and then my card is going to be second from top. Okay, so it's just going to be bringing in these cards and then cutting forward. Okay, so very, very simple. Now after the glimpse, because you crimped the bottom card, you can basically do whatever that you want with the deck, as long as you don't undo the bend of this card. You can give it a couple of cuts, you can give it an overhand shuffle or multiple overhand shuffles, it really doesn't matter. But once that you're ready and that you want to control the card, you're basically just going to set this deck down in front of you on the table, right, in table work position. Your left or your right thumb reaches over, it reaches over, and it's just going to contact the center of the deck. Okay, so it's going to contact the center of the long edge of the deck. And notice that because this card is actually bent downwards like so, so it's a bent in a U shape, right, like so. So I'll exaggerate a bit. So because it is bent in this U shape, your left thumb or your right thumb is just going to be able to contact and pick up the packet above of the crimp card. Okay, so from there, let me actually just center it. So from there, that did not do a good job of centering it. So from there, your thumb can just automatically pick up on the packet above of this crimp card because it is bent like a U. Okay. So this gap basically allows me to pick up the area above of the U, right? Because it's this, and then I could just take everything above it, okay? If I took the deck from the edges, the crimp wouldn't work because this part over here is square with the rest of the deck. But if I pick it up from here, right, I can easily pick everything up, whereas this part is square. So then we just grab the rest of the deck, so then we just grab the crimp card along with it, and I wouldn't be able to use the crimp properly. So to use a lateral crimp properly, I have to contact the center of the long edge over here, okay? So now that I picked up everything above of the crimp card is over here. It's on the top of this packet over here. Now I can just either do a normal cut, right? So I can just do this, give it a cut, and my crimp card is on top of the deck, or I can do a tabled riffle shuffle. I can just give it a tabled riffle shuffle, making sure that the crimp card landed last, square everything up, and then my crimp card is on the top of the deck, okay? So that is how you would use the crimp card that you got from the glimpse, okay? You would do the glimpse, give a couple of cuts, doesn't really matter. Give it an overhand shuffle, doesn't really matter, right? And then left or right thumb picks up from the center of the long edge, and then you could just shuffle the crimp card back on top of the deck. Okay, so what I find interesting about this move is that this move actually couples as a method to make a crimp card as well, which is really cool. But of course, that was to control the card back to the top of the deck. If I want to control the key card back to the bottom of the deck, it's going to be slightly different, but again, it's going to rely on where you place your right hand or your left hand, okay? So if I just center the key card a bit, like so, you'll notice that because it's actually U, if depending on where I place my cutting hand, it will change how I interact with the key card, right? Because again, if I place it near the center, it'll grab everything above of the key card, right? But because this is in the U shape, if I actually place my right middle finger and my left middle finger on the long edges of this of the deck, right, near the corners, if I actually just gently lift up on the deck, I can grab everything, including the key card, right? Because it's a U, so the short edges are in line with the rest of the packets, right? So here, if I can just lift up on it, I can just give it a cut, and now it's back on the bottom of the deck. Or alternatively, right, I can lift up on this and then give it a shuffle, right? And now it's back on the bottom of the deck, okay? So here it's very simple. It's just cutting directly to the key card, right? And then table shuffling, making sure that the key card lands first, and then the rest of the deck I can just riffle shuffle normally, and then it's back on the bottom of the deck, okay? So here are just two ways to utilize the lateral key card. One is just to make sure that it is on top of the deck, right? And then the other one is to make sure that it is on the bottom of the deck, right? So it all depends on your finger placement, okay? Center for cutting the key card to the top, and then to the sides if you want to cut the key card to the bottom, okay? So that's how you use the lateral crimp. So remember, the context behind the move is you're squaring up the deck. So naturally, you will need to find a reason to have a messy deck. You can have the spectators shuffle the deck however they want. You can spread the deck. You can dribble the deck. But something that you can do with the weird cut after the glimpse is this, right? So let's just say the spectator just shuffled the deck, all right? You can dribble the cards, have the spectator say stop wherever they want. You can then table the top packet and hand them the card that's on top of the bottom packet. So then they're taking a look at whatever this card is. Next, as they look at this card, you're going to execute the move with the packet that's still in your hand under the guise of squaring up the dribbled packet. So you're just going to glimpse the bottom card. So it's the King of Diamonds in this case. Next, have the spectator replace the card on the tabled packet over here, and then you can just place the remaining packet on top and you can fairly square everything up. So what this allows you to do is that this actually allows you to bypass that weird cut and then uncut motion from the original description, because you just did the first cut with the selection process. So now your key card or your lateral crimp is directly above of your selection. Now you can just do whatever that you want with it. If I spread the deck, I know that the selection is directly below of my key card. So just to recap choreography wise, right? Dribble, show how hand the spectator deselection, right? Execute your glimpse and put the crimp into the key card, right? Have the spectator replace it onto the bottom packet. Place the packet with the key card on top of the selection. Square everything up normally. And here, because your crimp card and your key card is now on top of your selection, right? I can spread the deck, I can spot the key card, and then I can spot the selection below of it, right? So I can do it as sort of another glimpse, right? Or using the lateral crimp, I can control it however I want, right? So I can pick it up from the corners, right? So, whoops, I missed it. So if I wanted to, if my deck isn't too bent, it's definitely too bent. Oh God. So, okay, there we go. So if I cut the crimp to the right, I just gotta shuffle the crimp to the bottom and make sure that the left-hand packet lands last, square everything up, and then I have my selection back on top of the deck, okay? So you can use it as a control. Alternatively, if you want, I can pick up from the center of the crimp, right? And then let my left-hand packet fall down last, which makes it so that I have my key card on top of the deck, and that places the selection directly second from top. Okay, so now I can just do like a double lift, and I could just do like an ambitious card or whatever, right? So that's another alternative for you to control the crimp and the selection as well. Okay, so yeah, that is just a quick use for that is just a quick choreography change for this move in general. Now, glimpses, there are so many sources for glimpses, but if you want to learn a few basic ones and a few useful ones, there's one in there's not just one, there's a whole bunch of them in Card Control by Arthur Buckley. Penguin Live, the Howard Hamburg Penguin Live lecture, there's a beautiful glimpse that I still use to this day. There's Card Manipulations by Gene Ugard, The Pivotal Peak by Ryan Schlutz, there's Modern Magic by Professor Hoffman. There you'll have all the classic glimpses. So those are just the bare bones essentials of glimpses, and I think that they are very, very useful glimpses because, yeah. So I find glimpses to be something that not a lot of people add to their repertoire, which is interesting, especially amongst the newer generation. It's probably an after effect of social media where there's more emphasis on like move monkey moves and very visual moves, which glimpses are neither of those, right? Glimpses are very, very easy moves, and they're not very mechanically satisfying, and they're also not very visual because they're supposed to be hidden. So it's sort of a category of moves that a lot of newer magicians won't really appreciate. But if you want to perform, I find glimpses to be one of the best tools out there, right? Because you already know the identity of the card, so you can hand the card out, you hand the deck out to be shuffled, right? And if you just give the deck a pass or whatever, I won't use a pass, but you can then just like look through the deck, right? And then just cut it from there. You can do whatever that you want with it. The point is, glimpses are very, very useful, and if you're performing, glimpses are a phenomenal tool that should not be underestimated in favor of controls or whatever. They have their own places for whatever, okay? And I find glimpses, you know, they can be inserted wherever, because knowing the identity of a card, why not? Why not have that available to you, okay? So glimpses, yeah, they're very, very useful. And yeah, I hope that this sort of inspired you to use glimpses on your own in when you perform as well. But I think that about wraps it up. Yeah, stay safe, stay healthy, and see you guys next time.